Well, good morning, good evening to our viewers in India. We're delighted and honored to have Vice President Pence to talk about U.S.-India relationship. This is the most important relationship of the 21st century. And we value this partnership both from a geopolitical perspective, from an economic perspective, and trade perspective. And so on that note, I'm going to pass over to John Chambers, Chairman of USISPF. And once again, thank you, Vice President Pence, for taking the time and talk about India, US itself. John, over to you.
Thank you. Mr. Vice President, this is going to be one of the most fun interviews I've done. A fellow Indiana graduate, looked at your background, it's just amazing. The 50th governor of Indiana, 48th vice president, a father that has 3 wonderful children, 2 of them married, and one that's about to get married, I understand, and wait till you're a grandfather. It is the neatest thing, no matter what everybody says. It is possible. It's so exciting. But you've always had the ability to really, I think, capture the heart of America and talk about trends going forward. So today I'd like to start on a personal side, then expand to India, then talk about the global events, and then finish up with how do we continue to innovate in this country and how we go forward. But I want to ask you the toughest question first. We've had 5 national championships at IU. We've been out of the top 10 for a little while. We're having a little bit more trouble than normal with Purdue, and I understand 2 of your kids went to Purdue. But when do you think we'll be in the top 10 again, when we beat Purdue regularly, as well as Kentucky, and maybe a national championship the next 5-10 years? Your thoughts?
Well, John, it's good to be with you, and I'm ready for tough questions, but I'm going to take a pass on that one. Indiana will be back, I promise you.
I agree. It's exciting to watch. But so often we talk to political leaders. We focus right on the business of the events. Getting to know people, especially for our colleagues that probably what we hundreds of thousands of people every time watching this in India, is understanding what you're like as a person. Your family is clearly first. And it's exciting what your family has done, and saw a beautiful picture behind your desk. But after family, often understanding what's been most important to you in your political life, that you really felt was a key cornerstone in your values and where you go, that tells an awful lot about a leader. Is there 1 or 2 concepts or events that really hit home in terms of what you're most proud of?
Well, thank you, John. I think for us, it's always been about faith and family and freedom. And when I think of the enormous contributions of some 4 million Indian Americans in this country today, and the incredible relationship that they've helped to facilitate and forge between the United States and India, I also hearken back to the fact that I'm the grandson of an immigrant myself. My grandfather immigrated to the United States in 1923 as a young man. He came here from Ireland. He came here to pursue the American dream. And in living the American dream in this great country, he drove a bus for 40 years, raised my precocious mother, who's 87 years young. She and my dad lived the American dream, build a family business, and I'm one of 6 children. But for us, it's always been about faith, it's been about family, and it's been about freedom, and really living out that freedom, being able to pursue our dreams. And I honestly think those are all values that are shared between the United States and India, and I think they represent, when you think of 2 of the greatest democracies on earth today. When you think of the relationship President Trump has forged with Prime Minister Modi, I think it's ultimately grounded in shared values, and it's on that foundation we'll continue to build for the prosperity of our country and the strength of this relationship.
Well, I'm going to come back to that a little bit later. Painting the big picture first, if you think about the next 4 years, what are your key priorities for the next 4 years? In other words, if I'm fortunate enough to come back 3 years from now and we're talking about how far the U.S. has come and also our relationship with India, your top priorities, if I may?
Well, when we took office, we had endured the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression. Our military was in so many ways struggling under budget cutbacks, alliances around the world. We saw regimes around the world that had been emboldened in the Middle East with Russian aggression in Ukraine. And all of that was the context in which President Trump came into office. And in our first 3 years, we rebuilt our military. We strengthened the relationship with allies around the world, including India, which included our commitment to strategic interest in alliances. Under this president, not only did we renew American military strength, but we renewed our commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, and ensuring that the strategic interests of freedom-loving nations across that region of the world and around the world knew that the American people were standing with them. But with regard to our economy, we implemented the policies of less taxes, less regulation, more American energy, and the kind of free and fair trade deals that literally created more than 7 million jobs in our first 3 years. And then in the United States, just like in India, we all continue to deal with the global pandemic of the coronavirus. But as our economy is beginning to come back, and we look at the next 4 years, I like to say our objective is we made America great again before. We're going to make America great again. And we're going to build on the very same policies and principles of a strong commitment to our national defense. We're working with countries like India and other countries around the world to strengthen our mutual security alliances. And the sale of military equipment is a part of that with our allies around the world. To see our economy come all the way back, we're going to continue to pursue the kind of opportunities for mutual investment that with the United States and India, we literally, in the last 20 years, John, and you would know the numbers better than most, we've seen a 500% increase in the trading relationship between the United States and India.
Yes, we have.
As President Trump made clear in his visit in February to India, hosted by Prime Minister Modi, that we want to build on that relationship to the mutual benefit of both of our countries. We want to continue to pour a strong foundation in this country for greater growth, greater prosperity, and I just can't wait for the next 4 years to see us build on the momentum that we had developed before this coronavirus pandemic hit, to bring America all the way back, and to see relationships with countries like India continue to grow and prosper.
Well, I want to thank you for being so open about your own personal values and direction, because for people to know each other between countries, being very candid about what's important and building that trust and relationship, both during the good times of growth and during the challenges. And I actually think it's the two together that make such a difference in firm relationships. If I can also take this opportunity for thank you for serving. People don't say thank you often enough. Thank you for your children and your children's spouses also serving in our military. I know as a parent how much that is so important, and at times tough for all the parents in America. It really speaks to your focus. Let me now transition, if I may, to how tight a relationship could this be? I'll come back in a second between the unbelievable chemistry between Prime Minister Modi, and I know him very well, and he's one of the top leaders I've ever met in my life, very much focused on digital agenda. I mean, their hugs here in Washington, their howdy Modi in Houston, their ability to really form a relationship. I've never seen a foreign leader come into India with the reception that President Trump got there. But it goes all the way through the administration. What caused that to occur? And it's more than chemistry. It's got to be shared values of the largest democracies. But if you could expand on that a little bit, because I think many of us watching are excited by it and at the same time curious in terms of what really makes that go so well.
Well, so much of it is a result of the relationship that President Trump and Prime Minister Modi have forged. I mean, they're both larger than life figures.
Yes, they are.
People know where they stand. They have great aspirations. President Trump for the United States, Prime Minister Modi for India. But I really do believe, John, that and you've been a big part of this. and U.S.-India Week as a part of celebrating this. The relationship between the United States and India is also deeply personal. When you think of the contributions day in and day out that Indian Americans make to the life of our nation, that American businesses make to the economy of India, I really believe that while the relationship has never been stronger, and that's a reflection of a strong relationship between our president and India's prime minister, I think at its core, what explains the dramatic increase in strength of the relationship over the last several years is those family ties, is those economic ties, and ultimately, as you said, John, I think it's shared values. When you think about the United States and India, you think of about the two strongest and most prosperous democracies in the world, and it's that commitment to that shared principle and that shared value that I think explains the tremendous growth in our relationship, and the fact that while the relationship has grown dramatically over the last 20 years, we think the best is yet to come for the United States and India in the mutual benefit of this relationship for decades to come.
You know, what's exciting, I think many people originally tended to look at business leaders working with government leaders saying it's about trade. That was what it was like 45 years ago when the U.S. and India began to work closer together. It really is about how do we win together as countries? How do we do that on issues of generating jobs in both countries and across all 50 states in the U.S. and 29 states in India? About how do we do innovation that is inclusive regardless of gender or religion? How do we bring innovation for two countries working together so much tighter than they could ever do by themselves? I believe, and I know this is a little bit on a much larger scale, like the Indiana-Purdue question, but I believe, and I think many people in this broadcast believe, the most strategic relationship to the U.S. long-term and to India long-term is the other. And that our aspirations should be around thinking creatively and innovatively what's possible. Now, I'm not asking you to rank necessarily where it fits, but could you share a little bit your thoughts on aspirations that we could do together, maybe everything from defense all the way through job creation to startups, things of that type?
Well, and President Trump has made it very clear. We recognize the relationship's never been stronger, but we really do believe that the potential benefits, not just economic, although they are very significant, but strategic in terms of innovation, in terms of upholding our values, our democratic principles on the world stage, has never been more important or never been more promising than it is today. We are both freedom-loving nations, and President Trump and Prime Minister Modi have forged a relationship ultimately on that foundation. But to your point, we have challenges in that part of the world. As I said early on, not only did we rebuild our military, but we reaffirmed under President Trump's leadership our commitment to free and open Indo-Pacific. While we saw India's neighbor China with the One Belt, One Road initiative under President Trump's leadership, we've reaffirmed our commitment to the economies of the region, to America's interests in the region, and partnering with India, as we are in so many different areas, will only strengthen that initiative in the decades that come. There's also very exciting partnerships in areas like energy and infrastructure that really will benefit both of our economies. And as I chair the National Space Council here in the United States, and you've seen the United States reaffirm our commitment to human space exploration. We sent the first American astronauts to space on an American rocket earlier this year, and we're making plans to put the next man and the first woman on the moon in the next 4 years, and then to Mars. We're in regular consultation with India about a partnership in space exploration, and we welcome that partnership and recognize the incredible innovation and technological capabilities that the Indian firms and the people of India bring to that project. So it's about our strategic interests in the region. It's about the prosperity of our two nations, but it really is about a boundless future together with the United States and India.
You said it so well, the two largest democracies, the first and the largest democracies, and working together and thinking about how do you win together in terms of the approach. I was just looking at some of the data earlier, the 4 million diaspora from India as an example. They've been so successful in this country, but they created so many jobs. And I was just looking at the first and second generation leaders from India in the US running the Microsofts of the world, the Googles of the world, and the IBMs of the world. And out of my own startups, which I have 18 of them, probably 60% of them have first generation or second generation Indian founders. And yet they grow their headcount here in America by 50%. And the Indian startups are growing their headcount in America just like we're doing it together. If there's one message you would have for such talent, I mean, I think we've got 200,000 Indian students here, up from 80,000 just 10 years ago, about how we win together, what would it be?
Well, I think it's just first, it's so refreshing to hear all of those numbers. But as I've traveled around this country, it's been the people that I've met that have inspired me. I mean, the business leaders, the people working in technology, the people that are creating businesses large and small. 4 million members of the Indian diaspora across the United States represent some of the best people in this country, and they're creating wealth and prosperity. But I would just say to anyone looking on and people coming and taking opportunities at our great colleges and universities is that we want to grow together. Yes. And they should have no doubt about that. And we've had challenges with our immigration system in the United States, particularly along our southern border. President Trump has been working to secure our border. We've made historic investments in border security. We'll continue to do that. But we're also going to fix our broken immigration system once and for all. And as the president and I have spoken many times, part of that second-term agenda is going to be the kind of immigration reform that's built on the principle of a merit-based immigration system. We want just what India wants is we want the people to come to this country that are ready to participate, ready to contribute, as people from India have done, as people in the United States have done in India. And so I just want that rising generation in India and Indian business leaders, men and women, who are looking to make investments in this country today, to know that America is not only open for business, but we look forward to growing the relationship between our two countries for decades to come.
Partnering for business. One of the tough questions is China. I work for Wang Laboratories here in the U.S. I did one of the first major strategic partnerships, high tech in China in 1995 as a young CEO. It was a win-win. Tough negotiations, but a win-win. In the last decade, those have turned into win-lose relationships. And while I'm a huge believer in the people in China, I've been very disappointed, and we have to get back to win-win. And I congratulate the administration on finally bringing this to the forefront. The relationship with China being strained and their aggressiveness actually plays to the relationship with India, perhaps an opportunity for India and the U.S. to do things that might not have occurred otherwise. Your thoughts?
Well, the relationship between the United States and India, standing alone, is important to our country, and will be for decades to come. But there's no question, as we've seen the relationship between the United States evolve in a way that when we came into office, half of our international trade deficit was with China.
Yes.
That as President Trump has made clear, China was simply not opening its markets to the United States of America. And beyond that, we saw the kind of human rights abuses. We've seen China break their word to the world with regard to Hong Kong. And we've seen provocative military actions in the South China Sea. by China. Against all of those, we've spoken out for our values, we've spoken out for human rights, we've spoken out against religious persecution, against Muslim Uyghurs and Christians in China, and we'll continue to do that. We've also made it clear, even recent maneuvers in the South China Sea, that we're going to continue to take the steps with all of our allies in the region to preserve a free and open Indo-Pacific. And President Trump's taken strong stands, imposing hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs on China, demanding that they begin to join the family of nations and open up their marketplace. The encouraging word before the coronavirus pandemic struck was that we were able to secure a phase 1 deal with China. Just a beginning. Frankly, John, as you know, most of the tariffs President Trump imposed on China are all still in place, and we have a ways to go before we reset this relationship and level the playing field for American workers and for American jobs. But it's a start.
Yes.
And President Trump truly does believe that our best posture with China or any other nation in the world with which we are in a competitive relationship or worse is strength. American strength. That first comes from the strength of our nation, militarily and economically, but also it comes from the strength of relationships. And there's no question that the relationship that has been forged over the years, and that under President Trump and Prime Minister Modi has never been stronger, will strengthen the hand of those of us that want to see a future of freedom in the Indo-Pacific. That want to see a future of freedom across Asia, and that as we stand together more closely for security in our economies, we believe that will only strengthen the case for a future of freedom. We want a good relationship with every country in the world, including China, and President Trump has a very good relationship with President Xi, but we're going to continue to stand firm with our allies in the region like India, and we're going to continue to be strong for America's values, America's strategic interests, and for American jobs and American workers in that relationship. And all that we do with India, strengthening all the ties with India, only strengthens that case.
Well, I want to thank you. I've enjoyed this interview more than I ever dreamed, and it's fun listening to how you think and getting to know you even more as a leader and a person. I hope that also is very much what our audience was able to get, both watching it live and those that watch it later. Any last thoughts on the relationship between India and the U.S., or challenges to the business leaders and government leaders who are watching this from both countries or citizens at this time?
Well, just maybe a word of thanks. I think this is the 3rd annual U.S.-India Week.
Yes, it is.
I had the privilege of addressing your foundation several years ago at the outset of this initiative. And John, I not only want to thank you, but I want to thank all the business leaders in both countries who've worked to build this relationship. It is a relationship that is founded on shared values, a commitment of the two of the world's largest democracies, a commitment to economic freedom and exchange. And I truly do believe that the relationship between the United States and India, because of much of the work that all of you have done and the work of our president and India's prime minister, has never been stronger. But I really do believe that all of us continue to build the ties that bind on the foundation in which we've built this relationship. The best is yet to come for the U.S.-India relationship in the years ahead. So thank you all very much. And John, thank you for including me in this important U.S.-India Week.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Our honor.